and welcome to Leaders of Tomorrow, India's largest platform for entrepreneurs. Anything and everything that matters to you, we cover it right here on the show. I'm Sunanda Jayaseelan. Today, we are putting the spotlight on businesses and companies that have stepped up and responded to the challenge which has been posed by the pandemic purely from a humanitarian standpoint. Organizations from the social space, from the not-for-profit space that have shown what it means to care and to give back. In our first segment, I'm in conversation and being joined on the show by Atul Satija, founder 2.0 CEO Give India. On the other side of the break, we're in conversation with Srinivas Rao, CEO of Give. Alright, we're debuting this segment here on the Leaders of Tomorrow, where we are shining the spotlight on businesses which have responded to this humanitarian crisis. First up, today joining me live here on the show, Atul Satija, someone who wears many hats, including that of the Nudge Foundation as well as Give India, but more recently has been in the news as the head of two organizations which are the only two in India to have received a grant from Scott McKinsey. Not that that is his claim to fame. Atul has been working very proactively when it comes to the challenges posed by the pandemic, working closely with the marginalized and those who have pretty much nowhere else to turn to. So Atul, first off, thank you very much for the work that you're doing. Congratulations also on the grant. And, I just want to first off start really by understanding from you, for those of our viewers who may be looking to understand the work that you do, what would you tell us?
Yeah, firstly, Sunanda, thanks so much for having me back here. See, what we really do at the Nudge is we are a poverty alleviation organization. I jumped into the social sector about 6 years back, wanting to spend the rest of my work life on the poverty alleviation problem. So we do three things at the Nudge. One is we run a center for skill development, where we bring the underprivileged youth and we skill them for service sector jobs. The second thing we do is we work on the rural livelihoods intervention under a center for rural development, where we work on getting the underprivileged rural small and marginal farmers, one, get access to social benefits that they are entitled to. And secondly, we work with them on the livelihood interventions on the agri and dairy side in rural areas. The third thing that we do is we run a center for social innovation, where we support the social entrepreneurs, the non-profit leaders, the non-profit entrepreneurs, get access to inputs, guidance, and capital to scale the impact of their work. So that's a span of the work at the Nudge. Give India is an organization I've been serving now for the last 4 years, and the mandate is very similar. It's a poverty alleviation organization, but the model there is by enabling people to give back in a manner that is convenient, that trustworthy, and really makes an impact on the ground. So that's a span of the work that I do.
So I was introducing you and talking, of course, about the grant that you've received from McKinsey, Scott. Atul, what is this grant? What does it mean for you? What does it symbolize for you? And give us a sense of what perhaps you're going to be using this money towards.
So Sunanda, Nudge has finished 6 years, and it's been an amazing journey.
Okay.
A lot of our experimentation, piloting, figuring out things is behind us now. And we are at a stage where we're looking to scale the interventions we are working on, both on the urban livelihood side as well as on the rural livelihood side. Now, what is happening in India is something very unique, right? India has the CSR law that allows organizations to spend 2% of their profits to charity. Now, it's a very interesting opportunity for nonprofits to have access to resources and inputs from corporates to scale the programs that they run, which means I can take money from a corporate and actually work on delivering skilling on the ground and delivering a rural livelihood intervention. However, because the organizations need a lot of investment to build the foundation of the organization, the core of the organization, CSR law does not allow the organizations and the corporates to invest in that.
Sure.
So that leaves a big hole in how nonprofits need to build their organization. Because McKinsey Scott has taken a very wise view of how to give money, which means it is unrestricted. It is also most of it very, very upfront money. And it is coming with a very high degree of trust to deploy the capital where it is needed the most. So it gives us a lot of freedom. The way we are planning to use that money, both in Nudge and in Give India, is to actually invest that money in building the foundation of the organization, which means investing in the product organization, building the technology team, building the impact measurement function to see what we are doing, whether it's making an impact or not.
Okay.
So idea is to invest it to build the core of the organization with this capital.
You know, organizations and people like you responded very quickly to the pandemic, and you know, you've worked in the area of hunger alleviation. That's not necessarily an area of work or a body of work or a vertical that your organizations or you as an individual had any familiarity with. So my question is, how did you respond quickly to this crisis and this challenge? Really, what helped you to do that?
So Sunanda, like you very rightly said, right, neither at Give India nor at Nudge, we are a disaster response organization. We don't know how to respond to routine disasters beyond raising money and giving to NGOs in Give India. When the lockdown happened last year, we very quickly realized that our regular campaigns on the Give India website were starting to go very viral, and people started to donate money for food and migrant workers, transport and things like that. We realized that the need is very, very large, and we are sort of handcuffed with what we do as an organization. So very quickly, we realized that we should set up a structure to do a very deep and thoughtful intervention to COVID. So at Give India, we set up something called India COVID Response Fund, ICRF, last year. We deployed over the course of 5 months during the first wave of COVID, close to about 220 crores. We did food and dry rations. We gave cash relief to the families of migrant workers who lost their livelihoods. We had 100 plus ambulances running in Delhi, Bombay, and other cities. We had PP kit donations given to a lot of state governments and hospitals, ventilators and things like that. At Nudge, very quickly, we realized that a lot of nonprofits across the country were struggling with the need for resources, the fact that they can't be in the communities that they serve to do good work. We organized everyone together and did something called the Nudge Forum. We launched a convening platform for the social sector to come online and have a dialogue on the impact of COVID across all areas, not just livelihood and healthcare, but also gender, also education. And we know how deep the impact is on many other dimensions of development as well. We also, in the second, towards I think October and November last year, we launched a very large intervention that we started exploring called Asha Kiran. Asha Kiran is basically a commitment to 7 districts in UP in phase 1, where we are going to deploy close to about 200 crores from our side. And we've taken a target of 5 lakh households where we are already working on getting their food security, entitlements that they have from the various government schemes like PM Kisan and Manrega and others, and build their livelihoods through goatry, poultry, and other models, working closely with the district administration and state administration in UP. When the second wave of COVID hit this year, we launched India COVID Response Fund 2. And between the first wave and the second wave, collectively, Sunanda will deploy close to about 1,000 crores of help.
All right.
Working with about 300 plus nonprofits. And we've already served at close to about 5.6 lakh people last year, 3.5 lakh people this year, close to about 10 lakh people already. We are working with them on all of these different intervention areas. This year, it's a lot of work that is going into healthcare interventions, both urban and rural, which includes oxygen concentrators, oxygen cylinders, oxygen generation plants, and things like that.
Why was it necessary for you to be involved in this area of, of food security, Atul? Because that's not necessarily a vertical that you were exposed to, like we were discussing. Keeping in mind, of course, one, no one had any idea, what was happening. This was the first time any of us have faced something like this. 2, you had to keep your own and the concerns and the health and the safety of your employees in mind. And through this, could you also talk to us about individuals who say, hey, I would love to be involved in giving back, but I don't even know where to start. What would you have to say to that?
So, Sunanda, I think the reason why we chose food security is that when a family does not have food on the table, there is absolutely nothing more important than that, right? Uh, we saw that the communities that we were working with in Jharkhand, their weekly income used to be in the range of 700 to 750 rupees. These are ultra poor tribal communities in Lohardaga, Latehar, and Gumla Dev. With the second wave of the pandemic, their income came down from 700, 750 rupees a week to 150 rupees a week, which means a family that is already living in extreme poverty goes deep in. And when they go deep in, what happens is that the 2 meals a day that they already struggle to have start to look like 1 meal a day. So they give up any saving, any asset they have. They get the kids out of school, firstly the girls, and then also the boys. They also put them to be actually becoming productive labor so they can actually get food on the table. What we really wanted to do with the food intervention is to make sure that they are able to keep the kids in school. They are able to have 2 meals a day with them and not lose all the savings they have or take very, very expensive debt from the nearby money lenders, so that the family does not have an impact that is very, very long term because of COVID. Unfortunately, that is still happening in very, very large number of families, but that's how we thought about it. And we have seen a very, very good impact coming out of food security interventions we've done.
Sure.
In terms of other entrepreneurs looking to do something like this, we saw, Sunanda, that a large number of people are at a point when they're thinking about social impact journeys, given what they've seen in the last 1.5 years in India.
Okay.
I don't think the intervention really matters. It's just a matter of taking the first step, picking a cause that you care about, finding an organization that you think is doing good work, start associating with that.
All right, Atul, pleasure as always having you on the show. Congratulations once again, and thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Let's slip into a short break. On the other side, I'm being joined by GAME, Srinivas Rao, the organization, joining us back in just a moment. Welcome back. With us here on Leaders of Tomorrow, and tonight on this very special series that we're doing here, putting the spotlight on organizations in the social sector that are involved in giving back during the pandemic, I'm in conversation with GAME. Srinivas Rao, CEO of GAME, joining us on the show. Thanks so much for your time here, Srinivas. As always, before we go any further, we love asking the entrepreneurs who join us here on the show to very briefly describe the work that you do for the benefit of our viewers.
First of all, thank you for giving us this opportunity. So GAME is a Section 8 not-for-profit entity. Primary focus is on the MSME sector. We've set up a platform. We have 80 plus partners, which are trying to basically bring together a variety of players across the ecosystem, ranging from entrepreneurship development organizations, academia, industry, government, civil society, and of course, entrepreneurs, to solve challenges relating to the issue of the MSME sector. Right. So historically, this is a large sector. Has about 63.5 million enterprises, according to last available data, employs 110 million people, and about 30% of our overall gross output is contributed by this sector. But this sector has been plagued by many challenges. So what we are trying to do is bring together a platform where we try and, using the metaphor of seed, soil, and climate. So seed as in getting more people to think about entrepreneurship as a viable career option, creating what we call entrepreneurial mindsets. Second part is in terms of soil, which is access to physical infrastructure, digital infrastructure, access to credit, market linkages, and so on. And the last is, of course, climate, which is around India remains, despite all efforts, remains a reasonably complex place to do business in. So how do we bring down the compliance and regulatory burden on micro, small, medium enterprises? And of course, we can't underemphasize the role of role models.
Sure.
Yeah, so we are basically building a platform to bring different players together to solve the challenges which this sector has.
You've announced a partnership with SIDBI to help entrepreneurs who've been impacted by the pandemic. What more can you tell us on that program?
So SIDBI, as you know, has been a very significant player, from a development sector perspective. Many of the large enterprises which exist today owe in some part their origins to the support they got from SIDBI. So what we are trying to basically do is address a few themes around this. One is how do we expand credit access?
Okay.
So just for to understand that a number of the availability of formal credit in the MSME sector is limited. It's basically data shows that only about 15 to 16% is formal credit coming through the banking sector. Rest of it is through a variety of other channels. So one is what can be done to expand credit access. And what we've understood based on our work is that the NBFCs play a big role in servicing the micro, small, medium enterprises, right? And one of the challenges NBFCs have is while we have close to about 10,000 plus NBFCs registered with RBI, but it's fair to say that about close to 80% of the credit is cornered by the larger NBFCs. So how do we make sure that the smaller NBFCs, which also serve a large section of this MSME universe, get access to credit at lower costs, so in turn they can support entrepreneurs? So that's one part. The second is around increasing formalization, right? So one of the, you're probably familiar with the Udayam registration. So what, as you know, right, today we have several different identifiers for an enterprise. So we have a GST number, we could have a number from a PAN standpoint, we could have a number from the individual's Aadhaar number, etc. So Udayam registration, how can we make that more universal and make it a unique identifier so that it becomes easier for both enterprises as well as financial institutions to extend credit?
I understand a quarter of the funds will go specifically towards women entrepreneurs. Now, it's no brainer that women entrepreneurs trying to raise funds, even pre-pandemic, was seeing less than single digits when it comes to the entire ecosystem in terms of the funds that are being raised. Just talk to us about this. How is it going to benefit, women entrepreneurs looking to raise funds, and how's that really going to work?
So the pandemic has had a significant impact across all sectors, and obviously it has impacted women very significantly because what we find is that some of the sectors in which traditionally women have tended to play a larger role, women-led enterprise have a larger role, sectors such as trading and services,
okay,
basically professional and personal and non-professional services such as beauty and wellness, healthcare, education, and so on, food, for example, have been impacted significantly. In fact, we did a study jointly with our partners, IFMR, last year. In the case of men, employment fell by about 30%. In the case of women, it fell by about 43%. Then close to cash shortages was significantly higher with women. About 72% of women-led enterprises said they would be struggling with cash. Then compared to men, which is about 53%. Then loan repayments, because obviously as business slowed down, they had material shortages, they had labor shortages,
okay,
etc. So loan repayments became a big issue. However, it was not all doom and gloom. It is also fair to say that in the survey which we did with more than 2,000 enterprises across India, women-led enterprises, more than 55% felt that they could get back on their feet, and they've also adopted newer ways of doing business. So, for example, many of them have now embarked on a digital journey so that they can access customers despite the 2 lockdowns which we've had.
Mass entrepreneurship, the area that you're involved in India is only at about 11% compared to 40% globally. What is holding us back, Srinivas, even as we're seeing more and more businesses, we're talking about crazy valuations for IPOs that are taking place, whether in 2020 or 21. What's really holding us back when it comes to entrepreneurship and also mass entrepreneurship?
So I think it's fair to say that in India, right, a lot of focus has been around skilling, right? There's been a kind of obsession with skilling, and what I think needs to change. So we have an interesting dichotomy in India. We have a very large section of what you might call self-employed people who are, in some ways, you might call them solopreneurs, etc., who become entrepreneurs out of necessity, not necessarily out of choice, right? And on the other hand, we also have, these large businesses, the large traditional business houses, and now a new generation of businesses which have been primarily fueled by, by venture capital as well as by private equity and so on. But one of the things people have to recognize that these large VC, type businesses don't necessarily lead to creating large-scale job creation, right? So, for example, there's a study from NASSCOM which said that just about 200,000 new jobs were created by startups in the whole of 2020.
What is the mid to short term looking like for you?
Again, we've made significant progress since our inception. We've actively engaged. We've been able to bring together about 80 partners across, as I said, governments, academia, industry, trade bodies, industry associations, etc., to collectively solve the problems which plague this MSME sector. And we'll continue on that journey. We've made good, encouraging beginnings. And we do believe all the interventions we are trying to do, which is how do we solve for this issue of fixing this broken escalator, right, through our various interventions around our different work streams. We'll continue to focus on that. Our intent is to basically, we do believe while there is significant doom and gloom, right, due to the pandemic, and as you know, the MSME sector has had, 3 waves, right? So we had a demonetization impact, then we had the GST impact, and of course now the pandemic. But entrepreneurs are a hardy lot.
All right.
They are resilient by nature, and we do believe with all the interventions we are trying to put in place, we do believe that there's no reason that this sector cannot be scaled, cannot grow and get closer. While we talked about 11%, as opposed to 40%, there's no reason why this sector cannot become the engine for significant job creation across, a variety of sectors in India.
Srinivas, thank you so much for your time, and thanks for the work that you're doing, because skilling is going to be so important, and more so skilling when it comes to what we need to call, of course, the bottom of the pyramid, working with those who are marginalized, working with those who don't really, like I was telling Atul, have others to turn to, and therefore we have organizations like yours that are doing so much work in this space. Thanks again for your time here. We've run completely out of time on this episode of Leaders of Tomorrow. If you have any queries for us, do let us know. As always, we are all ears. Our contact details on your screens as we speak. Thanks for watching. Have a good night.